Hi guys, in this video we're going to make Bo Peep from Toy Story. I went to see Toy Story 4 the other week and I just really wanted to have a go at making something with her on. Now before I start the cake I'm going to make her little cane. If it's called a cane, I don't know if it's called a cane or a staff or I'm not sure. The stick that she holds. Now I'm going to make her so she's a dome cake. Now she's turned out slightly smaller than 7 inches, so I've just got a 7-inch cake card and I've cut the edges off to make it just a tiny bit smaller. And I'm going to cover it in buttercream. So it just fits in there. So can you see my cake didn't quite fill the entire tin. So this is like a doll cake tin. So it took a while to cook this one because it's quite a deep cake. But what I want to do now is cut it into layers. And then I'm just going to add some buttercream between those layers. Don't worry about those bits that stick out of the side. We can take that off. And then I'm going to cover it in chocolate ganache. Now you can just use buttercream. But because her body's going to be quite heavy with the icing, I'm going to use chocolate ganache so that it's quite firm and her body doesn't sink into the cake. So I'll put one layer on, let it set, and then we'll add a second layer. Now to help you get a smooth finish, I've just got like a flexible smoother. My green flexible smoother is one actually that I just made myself. It's one of these cake cutting mats that I'm using underneath that was cut up into a smoother shape. But you can buy them ready done for you. So I've got it as smooth as I can, I've let that set, and then we've rolled out some fondant large enough to cover the whole of this skirt. So press it down all the way around the edges. Now she does have pleats in the skirt, but for this one I've opted to keep it quite smooth to start with, and then we're going to draw the lines in. And again, this is just a cake smoother I've got to help me smooth off the edges. Let's cut off any extra from around the bottom of my cake. Keep hold of that extra fondant because we might need that later. And I'm just using a ruler just really to get a straight edge. Although I think I've held it at a little bit of an angle and that wasn't on purpose. So I'm putting an indentation in with my dressing tool and also with my finger. Just so that it looks like she's got more pleats in her skirt. Now I could have pleated the fondant, but I thought it might make it quite bulky and it added more fondant than I wanted if I actually pleated it. So I thought this was the easiest way around it and the way that I'd use less fondant. So I'm just going to do that all the way around. Then at the bottom, I'm just putting a line just about 1 centimetre up from the bottom with my dressing tool, and then I'm kind of pressing it down with my finger so the bottom edge looks more pulled out. So I'm going to cover quite a large cake drum in green fondant. Now it's a little bit marbled, that's because I haven't mixed it in properly. I should have spent longer mixing my green together. And then just to give it a bit of texture, I've got a nail brush. Now it is a new nail brush, it's not one that I've used on my hands, so make sure you are using one that's not been used before. And we're just adding a bit of green to the edge of my board, just to give it a bit more colour. Now my cake drum I think is about 14 inches because I want to get some sheep on there at a later point if I can. I've just put some more chocolate ganache on the board ready for where I'm going to stick the cake. And I've just got this little rubber-ended tool that I'm just going to poke a pattern into the bottom of her skirt with. I've rolled some pink fondant out really thin and I'm just using a little plunger cutter to cut out some polka dots. We're going to stick those all over her skirt. Now for her body I'm actually using modelling paste rather than fondant, so this will set much harder. It's a little bit easier for me to work with as well when I'm making people. So we've started with a teardrop. The fat end is sort of the top of her body, the thin end will be her waist. I've pressed down for the tummy, pulled in for the neck, and I'm just going to trim a little bit off the sides just to slim her down a little bit more. And keep holding it against your skirt or the cake so you can see how big it is in comparison. And then we're going to push a wooden skewer through the neck till it comes out the bottom of the body. Now before I push it into the cake, I'm just going to put a plastic cake dowel, so it's a hollow one, or you can use a straw. Push it into the bottom, cut it off so it's level with the top of your cake, and I'm just going to fill it with a bit of fondant because my wooden skewer is going to go into this and the fondant will stop it moving around too much. Now you can really put a wooden skewer straight into your cake, but if I put it in this sort of hollow dowel or straw, it just stops any splinters going into my cake. Now just actually before I put my skewer in, I'm going to dress her body, I've decided. So let's put a thin bit of blue just on the front of her. Try and get it as even as you can. So this is the front panel. Then we've got some pink. We've cut one edge straight and we'll start next to the blue. We're going to wrap it all the way around the body. And where it meets the blue at the other side, we're going to trim it, pushing that down tight there. Then I've folded it over the shoulders. I'm going to cut all the extra off from above the shoulders. Just give it a little press down Now we can put it back into that cake doll. So push that down till you feel the skewer hits the bottom, like that. You can use fondant or modelling paste for this. Modelling paste will set a little bit harder. So I've cut a circle, and then we've cut a disc out that's a bit bigger. Now I do have a circle cutter that's this size, but couldn't find it, so I've had to freehand this one. Just kind of rub your tool on the edge to make it a little bit thinner. And we're just going to concertina it all the way around. And this is going to wrap around her waist. If it unfolds, you can fold it back together once it's on there. I'm sticking it down with just a little bit of water. So roll a long thin strip. It's going to go around her neck and down the edge of the pink, covering the seam between the pink and the blue. Now for a face, we've got a bit of an oval. Again, it's the modelling paste that we want to use here. We're just pressing it, you can see, to a bit of a point at the chin. Let's put a mark on where I want the eyes to sit. So about halfway down, just thinning that chin a little bit more. I'm just going to push the paste together to create a little bit of a nose. Just push it up underneath that nose there. Now, apologies, my fingernails don't look great. It is because there is food colouring stuck under them. I'm just going to put a little line in where I want the middle of her mouth to be. And then we're going to press under the line to create a bottom lip. And we're just going to try and pull that line upwards to create a top lip. And then I'm going to use the rounded edge of my Dresden tool to mark where I want my eyes to go. Let's push them up and open them out a little bit more. And you can get different eye tools that actually create these shapes for you. So if you struggle to do eyes, you might find they're a little bit easier. Just put a little arching above the eye for our eyelid. And then we're using some edible pink dust to give her a bit of colour to her face, mainly on the cheeks. And then let's fill these eye sockets with some white. Now I'm actually using modelling paste again, not fondant here, just because it's a bit firmer. Let's try and push it into the corners. And I'm just using some edible dusts again. I've got a bit of peach and pink mixed together. Although I think I've got a bit of green stuck in my pink. And I did dilute these down as well. So I'm using blue powders for the eyes. These are mixed with a little bit of dipping solution so that they give me a nice paint to use. Keeping it pale in the middle, dark around the edge. Even darker with just a tad of black on the very edge. Got a little ball of black that we're just going to push in the middle of each eye. And we're going to squash this down. More modelling paste, this time with a point on one end. And it's going to follow along the edge of our eye. And I'm going to cut the extra off the outside edge like that. We'll do exactly the same with the other eye. Just using a little bit of white food colour to put a highlight in each eye. And then let's use some chestnut brown to paint her on some eyebrows. So I've pushed the head onto the skewer. Can you see the skewer is very close to the top of her head, so you can see it just about poking through. If it is too tall, just cut a little bit off the top of the skewer. In the new film, I've noticed she looks quite glossy. I don't know if she's glass or porcelain, but she does have a very glossy look. So I'm going to paint some edible glaze on her face and on her chest. Just be careful, it can smudge the paintwork that you've put on, so be very careful. I'm just rounding off the back of her head with a piece of yellow, just so the head doesn't look too flat at the back. And then I've got a little piece of yellow that we're going to put at the sides. I've not worried about giving her ears because I don't think they're really going to be seen on this. I've done the same with the other side. And then we want a bigger piece that's going to kind of sit on the middle of her forehead just there. Now you want to press it on firmly, but try not to squash the head. You might even find that you have to do the head on day 2 and the body on day 1. So that it's not squashing too much. And we've got like some little cone shapes that we're just going to add to the back of her head for her hair. You want to see them from the front, so I'm going to add a couple more pieces at either side. And I've just cut out a big disc of pink modelling paste. So it's just a circle. I've put a little cut in the back, just because it's sat on her head a bit better. And then we're just squashing like a ball of paste fairly flat, so it covers that little cut that I've got on there. And then I'm going to put a bit more glaze on her hair. I'm not putting it on her hat, just her hair. If you think she needs another layer on her skin, you can do. And I'm going to pipe the pattern now onto her dress. So I'm just using royal icing. If you prefer, you could even use like an edible lace. You can buy edible lace or you can make your own. I thought this way would have been a little bit quicker, although I'm not the neatest person at piping. But I think it looks okay from a distance. I'm also going to use a pale pink to pipe, almost like a kind of netting-like look, on the frills that we've put on her skirt. Now, you can spend a little bit longer doing this than I have. I did it quite quickly, so it's not overly neat. Although I think if I'd spent a while doing it, it still probably wouldn't be that neat. Now for her arm, I've got more of the skin colour. Now this is a pre-coloured one, and I will put links to what I've used in the description box below the video. So modelling paste, we've rolled it nice and thin, and I'm just pressing the very end down for the hand. It's got a little triangle at the end, so she's going to have mitten shaped hands. I'm going to roll thin the wrist, and I'm going to cut this off at the length I want the arm to be. Now I'm going to let you guys judge yourself what length, but I've got it so her hand's a little bit lower down than her hip if I measure it against the body. I'm going to put a little indentation in where her elbow would be, and I'm going to have this arm out to the side, so I'm going to put a cocktail stick through the middle of it to support it. I'm going to then push this into her body, up at the shoulder, make sure it is up by the shoulder and it's not down by her waist. And let's put some water in her hand, and let's push this in. Now, try and make this stick the day before if you can, because it really does need to dry. I ended up making 2 because my first one didn't dry and I broke it. And then we just want a bit more glaze on her arm so that it matches her chest and face. Then I'm going to add her second arm. I'll move the sheep out of the way. So I'm just deciding what position to put this arm in. So I've made it in exactly the same way. I've just stuck it on at the shoulder, pointing downwards. And then we're going to add her sleeves. These were 2 semicircles that I've kind of squeezed the shape around a little bit. So just make sure they're covering the join between her body and her arm. And then we're going to put a little bit of white just around the bottom of each one just to tidy them up. Also, I think she does have a bit of white underneath on the sleeves in the film as well. So a piece around the back of the hat here. And then we're also going to do the same on the front of her hat. See if you can get it on there. If you go too big, it probably won't stick, so don't go too thick with this piece. And I also made her some sheep. So these are also made out of cake and fondant, but these took quite a while to make. So I'm going to put these in a separate video for you. Otherwise, you're going to get really fed up of watching. So there she is, all finished. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't seen the film, Toy Story 4, do go check it out. It's really good. And stay tuned next week for the sheep video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and more.